FoundHer Rising, the podcast for women founders in wellness, coaching, and consulting who are ready to step beyond one-to-one work and build businesses that create freedom, impact, and income. I'm your host, Christine Hakkola, business coach, former psychotherapist, and mentor to women scaling service-based businesses. So here's my question for you. What really happens when you take the leap from running your own practice to building something bigger, a brand, a business, and a team? Today, I'm joined by Lianne Wood, CEO of Build Your Private Practice, Inc., and a registered psychotherapist who's helping Canadian therapists launch, grow, and scale practices that actually support their lives, not drain them. With a background as a former insurance executive and having built and sold multiple businesses, Lianne brings a grounded, no-fluff perspective on what it really takes to grow sustainably while juggling it all. If you've ever wondered how to expand your impact without losing yourself in the process, you're going to love this conversation. I'd like to welcome brilliant and bold Lianne Wood. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
I'm really excited. We go way back. We've known each other for a long time, but I'm really excited to interview you in this capacity. I would love to just start off. You have worn a lot of hats, insurance executive, therapist, CEO. What was the turning point that led you to first shift from some of the careers you've held in the past to becoming CEO of Build Your Private Practice?
Mhm. Yeah, well, I think, there were so many turning points along the way, but I think, for me, when I had my private practice, and I was very fortunate when I started my private practice to fill it very quickly. And I really, I became a therapist because I wanted to help people. That was the whole thing behind, becoming a therapist, is I really wanted to help people, just, seeing all the suffering that was going on with mental health. And it's like, okay, I want to help people. So then my practice is full. Well, there's still a lot of people that need help, right? And so, so then it was like, okay, well, I'll add some things into my practice. I'll start bringing on associates, and I, start bringing on associates, and then I realized, well, okay, there's still more people that need help. And so, I kind of had this moment where I, sat with myself and just really looked at it, and like, okay, like it doesn't matter how many associates I add to my practice, we're never going to meet the need. There's no way for us to meet the need. And so, I really started thinking about, first of all, is there anything that I can do? And then what could I do to really, make an impact on the mental health crisis here in Canada? And what I realized in kind of going through that exercise is that, as therapists, when we go through our education and our training programs, we're trained how to be excellent clinicians, how to do therapy and really show up well for our clients. But what's missing in our training is the business skills, because so many therapists decide to go into private practice. Most of them do, right? And so we're trained as clinicians, and then we find ourselves in private practice, but there's no business training. And so, frequently here we are in a mental health crisis. We have people literally crying out for help. They're desperate to get help. They can't get help. And on the other side of things, we have therapists who are saying they can't get clients, right? It doesn't match. It doesn't match. Therapists are saying they can't get clients. We have a mental health crisis, people crying out for help. And so the missing piece is the business skills, right? Like learning how to position yourself in the market, learning how to market yourself, because there is no shortage of people who need our help. And so for me, the turning point was, being able to take the skills that I have in business and share that with therapists across Canada to help them position themselves so that the right fit clients find the right therapist and ultimately get the help that they need. And so by doing it this way, I have a national impact. So I don't know if that really answers your question, Christine.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love your vision, and I love how well you articulated bridging that gap between those who need the support and those who are offering it. And where is that disconnect? And from where you sit, the disconnect is therapists not knowing or understanding. And we could expand that to all wellness practitioners in my world, not knowing or understanding how to find clients and how to acquire those clients.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you have built and sold multiple businesses. You are not new to entrepreneurship, and you've experienced multiple different industries. Could you
Mm.
share a little bit about what are some of the common challenges that you've experienced across industries, and how did you overcome them?
Yes, so many challenges.
Big question, I know.
This is a big question. Um,
hmm
Yeah,
You
I mean,
can
I
pick one or
think,
two if you like.
yeah, I think, honestly, the biggest one is mindset.
Mm,
Constantly,
yeah.
constantly
Huge.
mindset, right? The self-doubt that comes in, can I do this? Who am I to be doing this? Things like that, and then around pricing and fees and all those, like all this, anxiety, worry comes up about things. Will people even want what I'm offering, right? So the mindset piece, I think, is one of the biggest ones. And, as I'm saying this, I also want to make really clear I haven't arrived yet, right? Mindset is
Mm.
something that is ongoing, that
What?
you literally,
Right to
okay?
meet them.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I feel like it's always something that at least I'm going to be working on is mindset, like I feel like, you work through one thing in mindset and you're like, okay, I feel like, I've overcome my money blocks, or I've overcome, this whatever it is that's been kind of getting in the way for you. And then the next thing reveals itself. And so, you begin to work on that when you're ready, right? And so I do think that the mindset challenge is the biggest one. The second thing that I think is really important is managing your emotions, right? Because I think that, challenges come up, right? And it's really easy to, I think, when something amazing happens in your business, to just, of course, feel elated. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's great to celebrate and to feel really good about things. But when we allow that success to, detract us from what we're really working on, right? We lose focus. In the same way, when a challenge comes up, right, and we get upset, we get, whatever, it pulls our attention to that thing as opposed to the business that we're working on. And so being able to, manage your emotions, to celebrate, to be upset, and to still stay focused and to still stay on track is what allows you to keep moving forward. Those emotions will detract you and pull you off course.
I love that I ask you about your experiences building and growing and selling businesses and the biggest challenges, obstacles, and I'm hearing mindset and emotions,
Yeah.
right? Which are so obvious when you say them. And also, I think not the first few things that folks would think about when they think about the problems in business. But yeah, I totally hear you. And I agree that when those things are managed, there's awareness around them. We're working through those. And as you said, always a work in progress. Everything else just becomes so much easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you think about, if you can work on your mindset so that, instead of thinking about, can I do this, thinking about, who do I want to be as a business leader,
Mhm.
instead of who do I want to be,
Yeah.
right? And showing up as the person you want to be. And then you have your emotions under control, right? It allows you to have the mental capacity to handle anything that comes up in your business. Hmm.
A
Hmm.
lot of listeners, and myself included, are business owners, and
Hmm.
most of us, not all of us, but most of us have built our own businesses from the ground up, and you've done that too. However,
Yeah.
you have a bit of a unique story around your current business. So I have a twofold question.
Hmm.
Is firstly, if you just want to share a little bit about what prompted you to, I don't want to give it away, but what prompted you to enter into your current business the way that you did, and how has your vision for it shifted?
Yeah. Thank you. This is a great question. And this, ties into how you and I know each other.
Hmm.
Because,
Hmm.
when I was building my private practice, you know the saying, you don't know, yeah, you don't know what you don't know,
Yes, I'm
right?
very familiar with that
Right?
saying.
You don't know what you don't know.
I
And a lot of
experience
people
it
say
every
that,
day.
right? And there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
But when I stepped into private practice, I had all this business experience behind me. But it wasn't translating over into the mental health world. And so when I first started my practice, I felt like I knew what I didn't know. I knew from a business perspective, I needed to be tracking KPIs, key performance indicators. I knew that I needed to be doing marketing, but the way that I tracked things in insurance and the way that I marketed in insurance didn't come across into therapy. And Right, like literally, right? So I really felt like I know what I don't know. I know what I need to figure out, right? And so for me, it felt like it was quite painful building my private practice. Like I was like, I have to figure this out, and I have to, So there was a lot of trial and error that went into that. And so when I got to the place where I wanted to expand my practice and to really begin scaling it, the thought that came to my mind was, I do not want this learning curve all over again. Like this was so much effort and so painful for me. And so I began looking to see, what, like, how could I learn? Who could I learn from? How could I learn to do this? So that, I would take some of that learning curve and the pain of it off of myself. And so, a lot of the resources that I was finding, to be honest, were American. And I know that there's a lot of similarities between the countries, and there's also a lot of things that are quite unique and distinct. And so when I was looking, I wanted something that would fit inside the Canadian framework. And I came across and I discovered Build Your Private Practice, and started looking into the programs and recognized, okay, there's a program here. At the time, it was called Expanders, and now it's called Scale Your Practice. But I joined the Expanders program, and that's really what eased that learning curve, shortened that learning curve up, took the pain out of it. And you were my coach because it was your company.
Surprise connection.
A surprise connection.
It's
Yeah.
so cool to hear the story from your perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, it was fabulous experience, going through that program as a client, and it definitely shortened the learning curve and took some of that pain of learning away from me. And so that was lovely. And you and I think we clicked really well, and, developed a good relationship. And then in 2023, oh my goodness, I'm just looking at the date, Christine, it's almost been 2 years to the day.
You know what? I was thinking about that this morning.
It's almost been 2 years to the day. I think it was, yeah, it was the beginning of November. You reached out to me in the fall of September of 23, and said that you were wanting to build your private practice, and would I consider acquiring it. And so, for me, like when at first I was like, what? Like, no way. Like this, like, why would you even, all that stuff that I just talked about in the last question about mindset. Who am I to do this? Why is she thinking of me? You know, why does she think I can do this? Right. So I had to go through all that mindset stuff. But then I realized as I thought about it more that it was really Build Your Private Practice was aligning with my passions. It was aligning with, what I was wanting to do and to help. And so I took this, what felt like this giant leap of faith. Like, I don't know how this is gonna work. I don't even know if you, right? So, but we did, and we did it quickly. And I think, from my perspective, it's been a really wonderful experience, the acquisition, in terms of, you and I are clearly still getting along 2 years later.
It worked.
It worked, and you're a coach still in our Scale Your Practice program, and so it's been really a lovely experience. I've done over the course of my multiple careers, I've done several mergers, acquisitions. I've sold businesses, and they don't always go as smoothly as this one. But this one, I tell you, has been amazing.
We're both very lucky. We're very wise, one of the two. So second part of the question, Lianne, how would you say your vision for Build Your Private Practice has changed from the time you acquired it to now, 2 years later?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think yeah. I think at first it was about like let's help therapists, and
Mhm.
clearly that part of the vision has not changed. We're still helping therapists, but now I think some of the shift that has happened is now it's like how do we change the landscape of mental health care across Canada? How do we, again, it's coming back to this mental health crisis that is still here. It was here before the pandemic. It's still here after the pandemic. And so, really looking at, how do we shift the entire landscape of mental health care in Canada. And what I mean by that is just looking at care models. We're so siloed in private practice, whereas like, if you want therapy, you go and you see a therapist. If you want a diagnosis, you go and see a psychologist. If you need medication, you go and you see a psychiatrist, right? So there's,
It's all different.
yeah,
So
right, yeah.
many separated layers.
Yeah, it's all separated. And so it's really, it's up to the individual, like the client or the patient, to figure out what they need and to find what they need
While
and
they're
to get
already distressed.
right. And they're already in distress. And so, looking at, how do we build networks, and
Hmm.
how do we connect professionals to each other, and how do we help clients, seamlessly move between the services and getting the help that they need. And so, that's a, part of more of, what I'm thinking about right now. Hmm.
I love that. And I love how the thread of helping therapists, it's still there and it's still the
Absolutely.
most salient piece. It's just
Hmm.
that in helping therapists, you're now by default and intention helping everybody else and growing stronger communities and increasing access.
Hmm.
I love that.
Hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you and I know, and maybe you could speak a little bit to this, that
Mhm.
moving from practitioner, which you still are, right?
Yes.
Moving from practitioner into that CEO role, into that business owner's role, which some of our listeners may still not even identify with. Even if they own their own business, they may still not see themselves as a business owner, but they are,
Yes.
right? So that
Yes.
shift from practitioner to business owner, and
Mhm.
especially the stage where you're still having to wear both hats simultaneously is
Yes.
huge. It's not an
Mhm.
overnight thing. It's not a switch, right? It takes a long time and it's really multifaceted. Of
Mhm.
all of the mindset shifts and all of the experiences and things you had to do differently and still have to do differently when you switch from provider to CEO or business owner, what would you say are the top two things that you really have to get your head around and think differently that make the biggest impact?
Yeah, this is a I love this question.
I'm pulling out all the big questions today, Leah.
It's a very big
Let me handle
question.
it.
I think, so I'm going to go into my own story first a little bit just to share, one of the things that really kind of pushed me to leave the insurance world because I get this question like why did you leave insurance to become a therapist? Like what is that about? So one of the things that really pushed me was that I wasn't enjoying the business side of things. I wasn't enjoying the hustle that oh you broke sales records this month or this quarter, so next month, next quarter you need to do more. you know Missing the whole point that like I just about killed myself to do that. Right? And how hard it was, right? And so, there was no, it felt very, very numbers, very corporate. I should say felt, it is, it's very numbers, very corporate. It's very cold, right? It's not person centered at all. And so that's why, that's a big part of why I left. I didn't want that. And I thought, being a therapist, I can just help people. I can just help people, right? And that's fantastic.
Simple.
It's nice and simple. And then, I got into private practice, as I, mentioned a few minutes ago, and I realized that I am still in business. There are still business things, right? And so for me, and I know, in talking with so many therapists that I'm not alone in this, right? I didn't want that corporate hustle, only focused on stats. Like I didn't want to lose the personal connection. And in my mind, I thought that I couldn't be both,
Oh,
right? And I
interesting.
and I think that it's the same for a lot of therapists. I know when I'm talking to a lot of therapists, they're like, okay, but I don't want to be focusing on spreadsheets and numbers. Like I just want to help people, right? Like I don't want to be, focusing on, financial management in my private practice. I just want to help people. Right. And so right, and what they want to be the therapist first. And so, for me, recognizing, like, okay, I do have these business skills that I, wanted to just shove away in a closet and never open that closet again. To opening up that closet and saying, I need to pick the best parts out of here
I love that.
that are really going to help me in my private practice. And because it's my private practice, I don't have, anybody saying you have to do it this way. And I mean, from a bit, not from a regulatory perspective, from a business perspective.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
totally.
so I get to create the culture in my practice. I get to create, how we, the ethos, how we work together as a team. And I get to, so I get to be the compassionate clinician and I get to be the confident CEO. Hmm.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I imagine that that resonates, and it just, to me, it speaks to the values you hold and how integrated you are into this work because it's still this mindset piece, this thread kind of
Hmm.
coming through like all of these questions and all of your experiences. So I love it. If we come to present day where you're at now with Build Your Private Practice, would you share a little bit about what's on the horizon? What are the maybe couple of things? I don't want to give away any secrets, but what are a few things that you have planned for your community, for the therapists in Canada who are lucky enough to benefit from the services you provide?
Mm, that is a great question.
Mhm.
We're constantly working on things that build your private practice, and really looking at what are the biggest pain points, what are the biggest stuck points that therapists are facing right now, and how can we, alleviate some of that pain, and without enabling, right? Or without, kind of taking things away. And I think, I think that there are skills that we need to learn as therapists, on the business side of things. I think, what I'm seeing is there's a lot of, well, I just don't want to deal with this. So, I don't want to do marketing. I don't like marketing. So I'm going to hire somebody. I'm going to hire a marketing company to do it for me, missing the part that, nobody knows you and your practice like you do. And
Just
so,
yourself from it.
yeah, you just totally, yeah. And so a marketing company cannot do what you want them to do without you being
It can be.
heavily involved,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And so, I look at what we're doing with Build Your Private Practice and what we're working on, going into 2026 as being, helping therapists understand the things that they do need to learn, right? And then yes, being able, once you have an understanding of it yourself, your brand, your marketing, some of the, the financial pieces or the, the statistical pieces that you need to understand so that you can make decisions for your practice from a data perspective, not an emotional perspective, then that allows people to grow their practices in the way that they want to, in a way that is aligned with them, who they are. And so we're actively working on, building out some tools and different things that are going to help therapists do this faster. Hmm.
Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, I love this. I feel like you're serving such an important need. And I just want to reiterate like the message that I heard from you there is that as a service provider, we're talking specifically about therapists, but I want to be clear that that could apply to any wellness practitioner, any coach, any female
Absolutely.
entrepreneur who's running their
Hmm.
own business. And the message that I'm getting from you loud and clear is you don't have to do all the things. You don't even have to do things a certain way, right? It's
Hmm.
your business. And what can have the biggest impact is one of the biggest impacts is recognizing that there are a few things that if done well, if taken the time to learn that and implement that, and maybe
Hmm.
outsource it, maybe automate it, right? But doing that skillfully can make a really
Hmm.
big difference in your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I
Uh,
do think that this, transfers over across, industries and businesses, right? Like you need to know there are things that you need to know as a CEO, and as the the lead of your company, so that you can continue to provide the direction for your company. Hmm.
I'm so excited to see what you create next and where you go with this and what those tools look like. Before we wrap up, Lianne, I'd love for you to share what's the best way for listeners to connect with you or learn more about your work.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, you can find us on Instagram, at Build Your Private Practice. Our website is buildyourprivatepractice.ca. And we have a very active Facebook group on Facebook, clearly. So you just search Build Your Private Practice for under groups, and I'm sure that you will find us there. And if you're a mental health practitioner or therapist, we encourage you and invite you to join us there.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you. And thank you so much, Lianne, for sharing everything you shared and also reminding me and reminding our listeners of the importance of mindset and just really being aware of the way that we think about ourselves and our business and our relationship with it. And thank you, listener, for tuning in to FoundHer Rising. If today's episode resonated with you, make sure to follow the show, share it with another founder, and leave a quick review. It helps more women find these conversations. You can always connect with me and Liane on LinkedIn or learn more about how I support women grow and scale service-based businesses at HakkolaHorizons.com. Until next time, keep rising and keep building the business that gives you freedom to live, lead, and create on your terms.